Great. Okay. I think we've started recording. Brilliant. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this afternoon. I hope that you're all well. Welcome to the School-Based Nurseries Mobilisation webinar. My name's Eleanor and I'm part of the delivery team. And today we look forward to introducing you to key teams who will be supporting you whilst you build your new nursery space. And you'll have the opportunity to listen to some reflections from some really great existing school-based nurseries as well, who will be sharing their real-life experiences with you. And we will also be covering key information about your grant today. So before we start, we'll quickly go through some housekeeping. This mobilisation webinar is aimed to successfully prepare you as you begin to build your nursery space. The webinar is not intended to resolve individual issues, but to enable you to gain key information, guidance and resources. If you have a question during the webinar, please add it to the Q&A chat, and please upvote your favourite questions where you drop a like on a question that another attendee has posted. And our team will answer the most popularly voted questions during our question and answer session at the end of this webinar. Other questions will receive a written response in the Q&A chat function. In the Q&A function, we don't expect you to share any information which you do not wish to share. After this recording, we will circulate the slides and a recording of this webinar too. So I will take you through today's agenda now. We will start this session with a welcome from our programme lead, Lisa Keenagan. Then we will take you through key information about your grant and advise you about Ofsted registration. And then we'll have a short presentation from Susie Drake from Halt Whistle Academy and Claire Larkin from Lime Tree Primary Academy, who will share their experiences and insights of delivering their school-based nursery provision. You will have the opportunity to ask Susie and Claire your questions via the Q&A function, and if you do submit any questions for them, please specify who they're for. We will then share key resources with you that can support your project delivery. And in the question and answer section near the end of the webinar, we will answer your top rated questions that you've submitted today. And lastly, we will discuss next steps with you and we'll close the webinar. So we will start today with a warm welcome from Lisa Keenagan, who is the programme lead of the School-Based Nurseries Capital Grant. Lisa, if you can come off camera, please, and come in.
Hello, can you see and hear me?
Yep, all good, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Eleanor, and hello everybody. I want to make as Eleanor says, a warm welcome to the first webinar for the phase 1 of our school-based nurseries. I'm Lisa and I lead on the programme. I think firstly, I just want to thank you all for engaging with the programme. We know that when we set the boundaries of this programme, it was ambitious, and you've all stepped up and delivered, and you've engaged with the programme, and massive congratulations on being successful to get an award for the grant. I think you may know that over 600 schools applied, so for you to make the top 300 that we could fund is just amazing. So thank you and massive congratulations. It really is a big achievement, and the impact that the nurseries that you build or expand has on children is going to be massively important. Can't overstate that. I also want to express appreciation for you taking the time to attend the webinar. We know that you've got very busy days, and it's a real sort of heartening that so many of you have managed to carve out the time to come today, because it shows us the level of engagement, and we are here to support you, signpost you, guide you, do everything we can to help you make a success of this. The teams have worked really hard on shaping the content of today, and to be as helpful as we can possibly be, and any comments and feedback that you have would be more than welcome. But the aim of today is for you to feel a little bit better informed, a little bit more confident, and feel it's been a valuable use of your time. And further guidance and support packages will come out as we go through the programme. As Eleanor said, we're continuously trying to improve the offering to you, so do raise any questions you have via the question and answer function throughout the webinar. It will help us understand the support you need to successfully complete your capital projects, which is absolutely what we want. The webinar today includes a lot of crucial information about your grant and wider support, and some relatively technical. Don't worry if you can't absorb it all today. As Eleanor said, we'll be sending out the slides and also the recording so you can refer back to it. We hope you enjoy it. today. We've tried to make it as informative and engaging as possible. And yeah, hope you enjoy it, and just thanks again. I'm going to hand back now to Eleanor.
Thanks, Lisa. That was really helpful to hear. Okay. Next, so we will be presenting some key information about your grant, and my colleague John's going to come in and present this to you.
Thanks, Eleanor. Afternoon, everybody. So first of all, I wanted to speak to you about the grant monitoring system that we've put in place. So as part of the monitoring assurance of the approved funding for your project, we do ask that you submit a monitoring form for your project at the appropriate time. As you can see there in the slide, that's May, September, November, with some additional readiness surveys in June and July. Those dates are contained within the post-approval guidance if you need a refresher at any time, and I would recommend taking another read of that document as well, as it goes into far more detail than I can go into today. By now you should have submitted the first form. The deadline was the 9th of May. I'm pleased to say the vast majority of people have done so, but if you still haven't done so already, then please do it as soon as possible, as we're unable to process any payments until we receive those monitoring forms. When filling out the form, please can make sure that the information is as accurate as possible, and if there's any uncertainty, then please do explain that within the form. There are quite a few free text boxes in there, so the more information you can provide us with, the better. We need to be able to clearly understand where you are at with your project and whether there are any issues of concern or changes that you're planning to your project. Again, please explain these as fully but as succinctly as you can in the form. If any responses are ambiguous at all, that will generate queries from me and my team, and it will mean that we have to contact you separately to just glean some more information. And on that, if we have directly emailed you asking for any further information, I would ask that you prioritise a response on that, and in turn we'll respond as soon as we possibly can. This is all to help prime the pumps and make sure that you're getting grant payments in a timely manner that allow you to deliver the project according to your preferred timescale. I would ask that you please do fill in the whole of the form. So any of the areas that it asks for information, then please do fill that in, but please don't modify the format of the form either. It's great to get additional information, but if the format's changed, it generates some problems for us in aggregating all the data from those. So again, just if you need to give us more information, put it in one of the free text boxes. And just say it's really important for us to know how your project is progressing and to know any delays or issues. The earlier we find out about those, the more options we've got in how we can help you kind of unblock some of the problems you might be having, and ensure that your approved project's delivered to plan. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now it's a few words about the completion process. So once your project has completed on site, then we do ask that you submit a completion form with the supporting documents that we ask for, and these again are listed in the post-approval guidance. I appreciate that you can't always, you can't finish on a Friday and submit a completion on a Monday. You'll be waiting on some documentation in some cases, but just ask that you do it as quickly as possible. Again, for those projects where we're holding 20% of the funding back, it allows us to get the final funding out to you as quickly as possible. The information we require includes potentially things like a certificate of practical completion or an equivalent. If your project's sufficiently complex that you've got a full formal contract in place, building control officer's final certificate, if appropriate, again is needed. As built drawings, we ask for photographs of the spaces that have been created, so that we can clearly see the end result. We ask for a complete a complete list of invoices, listing all of the invoices that you've paid in relation to the project and copies of those invoices. We'll review this information that you send within the return and come back to you if there's anything missing or we've got any queries on anything that's being provided. We do aim to respond within a week of receiving a completion return. If everything is in order, then we'll notify you that we've accepted the completion form and we'll authorise the final payment if one is due to be paid within 4 to 8 weeks. And that will depend very much on when the return falls within our our payment process. Where we do have any queries, we'll contact you via email. We'll set out what additional information we might require. So, for example, if there are any differences between what's been delivered compared to what was approved in terms of scope of the project, and there hasn't been a scope change request, which I'll come on to next, then potentially we're going to come back and ask you for some further information. If the end result of your completion return is that there's been a project underspend, or that we've found some expenditure which is ineligible, then we will amend the final payment that is due to you, if there is a final payment due. If the eligible expenditure is less than what we've already paid you, then there's a process whereby we recover that difference in funding, either via an invoice or via a deduction against other DFE funding payments. And then finally, on completion process, we will also be visiting 10% of projects, but these will be randomly selected. They'll be to come along, view the completed work, and in these cases, we may also ask for other additional project documentation. Next slide, please. Thank you. So then we're on to scope change requests. We expect that you to let us know about any significant changes to your project by submitting the scope change request form. A copy of the form was included within the document pack that came out with your grant offer letter. And again, there's more information in the post-approval guidance. So we will need to confirm acceptance of these changes before you proceed with them. So please submit a form prior to carrying out any changes to your project. If there are significant changes to the timing of the delivery of the works, then you need to give us a scope change request. So this is for delays that are more than 6 weeks from either the stated start date or the stated completion date in your original application. And you should also provide us with an explanation of why that delay may be caused. We'll also need you to submit a scope change request where there are changes to the number of places to be created, again with an explanation as to the reasons for that change. You'll need to submit a form where there's a significant change to the actual works. So things such as any changes to the gross internal floor area of the project, changes to the location of the rooms that you're refurbishing into using as nursery spaces, or any significant changes in the project materials that you're intending to use, as well as any other additional works which are not specifically mentioned within the application. So I think a good example would be if you're changing the colour of your carpet, we don't need a scope change request. If you're changing carpet to vinyl, then we probably do need a scope change request, and we need to understand kind of the reasoning for that. In particular, when it comes to expenditure of contingency, and so if your project has a contingency fund and you need to access that for any reason, then again you need to submit a scope change request form telling us why you need to access contingency and how much of it. And this whole scope change request process is so that we've got a firm understanding of how projects may be changing. We appreciate that they do need to from time to time, but it also cuts down massively the amount of queries that are generated at the completion stage. And just to confirm, you can include multiple changes within one scope change request form. So we don't need 10 forms. If you're making 10 minor changes, we need one form that sets out all 10. Where necessary, you should provide some further documentation, such as amended floor plans, updated schedules of cost, and anything else that'll help us more clearly understand what the proposed changes are. And again, we'll aim to respond to these as quickly as possible. I appreciate I've said don't continue with work until we've approved it, so we need to approve it very quickly. Thank you. Next slide. So this slide here, we just want to talk about how we can all learn from your experiences in delivering these projects. So we will be contacting a selection of schools to take part in an evaluation activity as part of this test and learn programme of the initial 300 nurseries. This is completely separate from the grant assurance activities, which are the three items that I've just talked about there, and in no way will have any bearing on your grant payments. This is us gathering information about your experience of delivering these projects. It's very important that you engage with any evaluation activity that you're invited to take part in. Participation will help us to capture the full range of experience of projects as part of this test and learn, and helps us to pass on lessons learned to schools who may be opening new nursery provision in the future through a potentially updated guidance or evaluation reports. Please note the evaluation is being conducted in-house by DFE analysts as part of this test and learn, and won't be provided by an external contractor. Schools will be selected using the sampling methodology to get a good representative mix of projects in the evaluation. However, if you are keen to share your experiences, then we are looking for schools to volunteer to take part in testing of the evaluation tools. So please do get in touch if you'd be interested in taking part with that. And thank you. I think I'm handing back to you now, Eleanor.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
That was really helpful to draw out some key information about the grant there. And if anyone has any questions specifically about their grant or the policy assurance, please send your inquiries to sbn.grantmonitoring@education.gov.uk. This email address will be on the final slide of the presentation as well, and is the one where you received your grant offer letter, templates and documents from. Next, we would like to remind you about Ofsted registration. So I'll be handing over to our Ofsted colleague, Blarina, to come in.
Thank you, Eleanor. Can I just check you can see me and can hear me okay?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm Blarina Miftari, and I work in the Early Years Inspection Policy team at Ofsted. I'm also joined today by a couple of colleagues from Ofsted, Caroline Hearn from the Early Years Regulatory Policy team and Lucy Ronker from the School Inspection Policy team. So today I just wanted to talk to you about the importance of carefully considering whether your proposed provision for the early years offer will require a separate Ofsted registration that's distinct from the school. So not all providers need to submit an application for Ofsted registration of their early years provision, but for some it will be necessary. So for example, registration is required if you plan to cater to children under the age of 2. You must also register if you do not meet all 3 limbs of the statutory exemption criteria. For some already registered schools, if you are changing how you run your early years provision, you might need to register again. So one example of this is where a school has registered early years provision within Ofsted, with Ofsted, but there will be a change in terms of who will be operating that provision. In a very similar way, if the earliest provision used to be run by a PVI on the school site, but is now being run by the school, then the school is required to register with Ofsted if it doesn't meet the exemption criteria that I've mentioned. Also, if you already have Ofsted registered early years provision on site and are expanding the setting or carrying out building works on site, you will need to notify Ofsted about this as it will likely be marked as a significant event. So the kind of things you'll need to notify Ofsted about in terms of changes will be those to the address of the premises that may affect the space available to children and the quality of childcare available to them, the name or address of the provider or the provider's other contact information, and the person who's managing the earliest provision. But those are just some examples, and there's a full list of requirements, including all of these points that are set out in the EYFS framework. Now, there's a couple of useful links on the screen here where you can find out more information about all of this detail within the Registering School-Based Provision guidance and the Childcare Registration Exemptions guidance. The Registering School-Based Provision guidance in particular includes the detail about the 3 limbs of the statutory exemption criteria and as a result, how Ofsted would inspect that earliest provision in terms of how it's then registered. So another really important thing to highlight to you all today is that your Ofsted registration application process can take on average 12 weeks to complete from the point that you've submitted your application. So it's really important that you start this imminently if you do need to register. Your Ofsted registration must be in place before your provision opens. So please take this 12-week timeframe into account. And also be aware that you and others who form part of this registration may need a new DBS if it's not an enhanced check with barred lists and either on the update service or issued in the last 3 months. If you do need to register, there's a few things you'll need to do before you start your application. So, for example, you can't submit the registration application until you and others have the correct DBS. Finally, just really want to emphasise that it's extremely important that all provisions who do need to register with Ofsted do so. If you open your earliest provision without the Ofsted registration, when in fact it might have been needed, this would be counted as a prosecutable offence. It would also mean that any insurance you have set up is likely to be invalid, and there's a chance that you could be closed down in terms of the earliest provision. That's it from me today. I'll hand back over to Eleanor.
Thank you so much, Florina. That was really informative and helpful. My colleague is inserting polls into the webinar now for everyone to fill out, please, about Ofsted registration. So please can you take a quick moment to fill them in. There'll be 3 polls that should be inserted. So if you can just answer each one, and then we will move on to the next section shortly. Thank you. Okay, so the second poll has just come in as well. If you don't mind, please answering that. And then this is the final poll about Ofsted registration, if you can answer that as well, please. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next section now. So we just have some key dates on the screen. To summarise all of the important information about your grant and Ofsted registration, we wanted to condense this into a timeline for you all. So this includes dates for your grant monitoring form returns, support package events, when your payments are due, and a reminder that you should register for Ofsted provision by the end of the month if relevant. There is an additional action on here that we want to turn your attention to called the Project Readiness Survey that's highlighted in yellow on the screen. So this survey will be sent to you all in early June and early July, and your responses to this survey will help us understand where you've got to in delivery and any additional support that you might need from us. And this can also help us shape the drop-in session accordingly to what concerns you're facing and need support on the most. We will be sending this slideshow out to you after the webinar, so you will have a copy of this timeline at hand. Okay, So we are moving into the next section now of the webinar, where we are joined by Susie Drake from Holt Whistle Academy and Claire Larkin from Lime Tree Park Academy. Both school-based nurseries have great insight to share with you about their nursery rebuild and how they uphold a high-quality early years provision within the school setting. So we're really excited to have them here with us today. Susie, can I hand over to you first to present about Holt Whistle Academy, please?
Yeah, thank you, Eleanor. So thank you for inviting me today. I'm Susie Drake. I'm the head teacher at Holt Whistle Primary Academy, and we are also the lead school for the Great North Early Years Stronger Practice Hub. I'm just going to share, if you go on to the next slide, Eleanor, please, just going to share some considerations that we made when we started to design and develop our brand new nursery provision 5 years ago now. But we're very much started with putting the children and the needs of our local community in the heart of all of our decision making. So we thought very closely about our community and cohort needs. It was very important for us that we matched our learning environment in order to maximise the learning potential of that environment in promoting those key and priority skills that the children needed to secure from our provision. And then we also looked, and I'll speak very briefly today about our leadership and staffing structure, our professional development and how that also aligned to our cohort needs, and briefly around our curriculum as well and how we've driven that and aligned that again with the locality. On to the next slide. So we're going to looking at how we developed our understanding around our community and our cohort initially. We went to our local authority and the partners there were able to support us with demographics and locality birth rates so that we could make informed decisions about the size and the provision that we needed to offer for the community that we serve. And we also looked closely at the EYFSP data trends over time to make decision making around the developmental priorities that our children had. And we also used our own knowledge of the children, our understanding of children's schemas of development, as well as their developmental needs. So with what we were seeing within our community. And we went to our family hub, which is here on site of the school, as well as feeding nurseries and the locality health visitor in order to make decisions about the needs of the children that were coming through to our school. We then started to develop a map of child development priorities. And the next slide just shows a really abbreviated version of this. So this was a really complex map. It identified all of the different areas of learning and the challenges that we could see our children were facing as they entered our nursery. We then made decisions prioritising which areas we were going to focus upon in order to develop a provision which was very bespoke to the needs of this community. So just to give you an idea of the sort of common presentations that we were seeing on entry at the time. So they will be very familiar to a lot of you, I know, but increasingly difficult challenges with children being pre-verbal, having a lot of difficulty being able to express their needs and even using very basic names and greetings. We had a lot of children with fleeting attention and concentration, really unable to be able to communicate their needs and desires in any meaningful way. In terms of sort of personal development, we noticed there was a significant change in children needing to have that real proximity to adults and feel very close and nurtured, even more than we'd had in previous years. And that was definitely an exacerbating trend that we saw. And certainly in terms of their social play, we were seeing that children were parallel playing at best, but really struggling to be able to engage or use resources in a purposeful or meaningful way. And in terms of physical development, there was a real change that we saw in our community at the time. You'll see in a moment that our school is actually on 3 levels, and so steps were a big thing that we had to consider as we were putting together our provision. But we were seeing children starting to come in having developmentally very different early years experiences. So children were struggling to do things even like sit without propping themselves up, and we found children doing a lot of lying and slouching and really mimicking those behaviours that they've been using in the home. And it presented the children with some really significant physical development needs on entry. So starting place for our decision making around what was to work best on the next slide is that we wanted to create an enabling environment that was really going to ensure we were promoting those three core areas in particular, and we went straight away to the Education Endowment Foundation, the source of all of our evidence-rich information, which really informed our decision-making process. We used the EEF Send toolkit in particular, first of all, to be able, thanks Eleanor, to be able to prioritise exactly how we were going to make those decisions work for us, and also to bring together the team of experts that we needed to be able to support us in our mission of creating a bespoke environment that was going to meet those three developmental needs. So on to the next area, we started to think closely about matching our learning environment to promote the development of those three key skills, and then also starting to think about what professional development our staff needed in order to be able to meet, again, those three key skills, and how we needed to realign our curriculum to meet the priority areas that we were starting to see. So we began the exciting part, which I know a lot of you will be just about to enter now, where we were starting to work with designers and the local authority to remodel our space. On the next slide, there's just a little plan of our early years environment, which was at the modelling stage at this point. And we, at this point, were really thinking about safety, compliance, ensuring that we had enough toilets for our children, that we had safe spaces around transition times in particular, that our spaces were as flexible as possible. So you can see in the middle of that big building, big space in the middle, there's actually a temporary wall. So that can be split into 2 classrooms or into just 1 classroom, depending upon our changing cohort sizes. But we also wanted to ensure we had really good access to outside and lots and lots of opportunities for children to be independent, such as child height sinks in the right places for children to be able to use as part of their daily routines. You can see the journey that we went from the starting place that we had on our next slide. So on the left-hand side, the big old middle school building, which you had to access steps to be able to get into all the spaces. But it was really important for us that our youngest children from nursery to Key Stage 1 would be able to have a safe space to be able to do that really important handover at the beginning and the end of the day, and have those valuable conversations with parents away from the danger of the road outside the school, and also allowing the relationships to build between our staff and our children. So one of the first things that we planned into our build was this secure space, a great big deck at the front of the school, pram accessible, and able to create this really secure and safe space for families to be able to do handovers at the start and the end of the day. We then started to work with our room designers, and on the next slide gives you an example. This was one of the room designs that was put together for our reception classroom. But we were really careful when we went out to tender, not only to have great value in terms of the resources that we chose, but really thinking about having resources that were as open-ended and flexible as possible, that allowed the children to have that independence to be able to access resources for the level of independence that they wanted. But also we looked at priorities around things like how we organise things, just simple as washing up. Where were we going to have dishwashers? How could we ensure that our teachers would have resources on site? The big blocks that you can see on the side of this room are big resource hubs where we've got resources really easy at hand, so the staff can respond to children's play and interests as the day progresses. The next slide shows you a photograph of the inside of our nursery classroom. So we wanted our nursery to feel open and inviting, but also really comforting and homely. We wanted, again, those resources that are super flexible, and we thought about transition, particularly at the start of the day, as a real priority. So we located this breakfast space, which is right at the foreground of that picture, with a child height sink, both to afford the children the independence of being able to wash up their own pots and pans, things that they'd use through their role play, but also through their own eating, and then also able to use it through their own painting and modelling as well. And moving on from that space, on the right hand side of that photograph, you can just about see a little soft story space, which features in another photograph, but allows the children to be able to have that welcoming soft story and observe what's going on time at the beginning of the school day. On the next slide, you can see we use levels really across our early years provision to create opportunities to develop those social skills, as well as collaboration and the opportunities for individualised thinking, so that we use rugs and stages and little platform cushions really to define spaces. And we found that this has been really effective in creating a super calm environment where children can play alongside each other, but also if they want to have their own dedicated space uninterrupted to be able to focus and concentrate on their interests and their play. It also has the added benefit of a little bit of physical development, as well as children move up and down and pass things up and down between all of the different levels that we have within our and across our provision. On the next slide, I've just highlighted there how we made space for big spaces. So I mentioned at the beginning that children were really struggling to be able to even sit up, holding themselves up and sitting in that W position with their legs at the start. So we purposefully left open big soft spaces so that children would have space to engage in almost tummy time activities, the sort of things that you might have previously been doing with your 18 months or 2-year-old children and younger. We were starting to put into our provision for our 3-year-olds with games and activities that children would lie on their tummy in order to develop that core strength. I've also included in here on that middle inset, you might be able to see a couple of our little stools, and these have been absolutely invaluable. So those little stools have been great to be able to for children to be able to use flexibly around different places, but also just to engage their core muscles as they've been able to sit. We found it's had the most incredible impact on children being able to sit then on the little chairs. You can see the little chairs that we've got alongside in one of those photographs. We've also created little tunnels to be able to connect different spaces and stillness as well, encouraged with mirrors in certain places. So there's places to move, places to be still and focus as well. And moving outdoors, again, you can kind of see the journey we've been on from a bit of an overgrown space. My only advice here is to let your imaginations go wild. I had a lot of fun doing this and developing our outdoor area, and my passion here. But our outdoor area provided us with this incredible wealth of just natural resources that our children could access for play. And we were also blessed with the opportunity to be able to develop a really bespoke outdoor play environment. So I'm just going to talk you through some of the choices and how they relate to our provision. The next slide shows you some of the big spaces. So we incorporated a great big, huge sandpit. Again, children can crouch and lie and pour water, big spaces to be able to jump off and develop all of that those gross motor skills that children need to be able to develop. With us having lots of floors in my school, our children quite often, and our community doesn't have a lot of housing where it's on multiple levels. So quite often our children are living in flats. So it was really important for us to build steps into our provision. So there's steps up the little bridges, and you'll see in later photographs other parts of our provision that require children to be able to climb and again develop those gross motor skills. The next slide shows you some of our invitations to climb, and whilst we were really purposeful in terms of our choices, what we decided to put into our provision, creating some design structures, equally some of the elements that we put in that were super affordable, things like these little balancing ropes that we've got on the right hand side, have provided equally as much fascination around balancing and trying to climb as much as some of the more expensive elements within our design. We have also got lots of different surfaces. So when we designed, onto our next slide, Eleanor, we designed footpaths with lots of different surfaces on, so they lend themselves to a really wide variety of small world play. But this dry riverbed in particular has been great, not only for children's physical development, but also in particular to develop our boys and their language through their storytelling. So we were finding our boys weren't storytelling particularly orally, but working with their interests, which I know a lot of you will have similar ones where the boys come in very interested in dinosaurs and trucks and diggers. And this particular bundle of rocks has been invaluable and has really opened the children up to the world of small world storytelling through outdoor role play and outdoor small world play. We also wanted to create a real sense of journey and adventure, particularly bearing in mind what I said about the children needing to have spaces that they could explore, but feeling quite nervous and anxious about leaving their key adults when they first started with us. So we, in either corners of our provision, created these destinations. So one of our destinations is a little role play cottage, which changes according to our projects that we're looking at half-termly, and is used as a source of play, but guided play, and again structured and scaffolded by our staff team. And then the other one is our outdoor treehouse, which you can just see in the back of that right-hand picture, which we equip with resources to support children's independent application of learning. So, for example, this week that has lots and lots of bug hunting kit in it, and the children can use it to go and identify some of the mini beasts that they might find if they turn over a log within the woodland part. So moving on from our outdoor provision and thinking about very briefly our staffing and professional development. So we have a considerable team. We started off with a brand new early years leader and an early years teacher who was an ECT, and we have blessed with an amazing HLTA and forest school leader and our teaching assistants and an apprentice alongside. It was really important for us to get our professional development right from the outset. So we went again to the Education Endowment Foundation. We also looked very carefully at what the evidence was of what worked best to be able to support our children in the areas of development that they needed. So on the next slide, and this was over several years, some of the professional development that the team accessed either individually or as a whole group. We already had things like Nelly early language in place in our reception class, so it seemed the natural next step to also introduce the Nelly preschool as well. But we were very conscious around the quality of what we were choosing to implement and making sure that we were using our staff time as mindfully as possible in the areas that were best able to be able to upskill them to be able to help the children in those key areas. And then very briefly looking at curriculum, we rewrote our curriculum completely aligned with those three key priority areas. We looked very much at communication and language, and we used ourselves a particular communication and language tool, which allowed us to create a curriculum around it to be able to serve children from sort of 2 years right the way through to reception age. We were really aware of the very broad developmental range that children has on entry. So our curriculum was designed so that children can access it, whether they are working at a below twos stage or whether they are developmentally in line with expected or above that. And we also recognise the increasing need for sensory provision, which I know a lot of you will also be experiencing at this time, and made a decision around what our portfolio of interventions was going to be. So on to the next slide, I've just popped into there, just an example of how we, just one element of our planning, just to show you how we planned out our provision with outcomes identified to try and ensure that we were able to use a similar theme or similar experiences, but to have different outcomes for children, whether or not they were developmentally operating at around a 2 stage, around a nursery 3 stage, or within reception bands. And then obviously the teachers then take that planning and put it into more detail in their provision as well. That has been a real whistle-stop tour. So as part of the Stronger Practice Hub, and if you are undertaking this new project, which is super excited, I'm really excited for all of you. It's one of the most exciting things that we got to do ourselves as a school. I would encourage you to get in touch with your early years Stronger Practice Hub in your area. Here at the Great North, we're able to offer a few sessions, and they're online. They're open to absolutely anybody across the country. We've also popped in there a little bit of extra detail. If anybody wanted to come and visit Holt Whistle Academy, you're very welcome to do so. You can book any of those sessions through our Great North Early Years Stronger Practice Hub website. Yeah, wish you the very, very best of luck in your design and your little projects that you're all going to go forwards and explore over these next coming months. There's a lot of work to do, but it really is incredibly valuable when you can set up a provision that's really closely meeting the needs of your community. On the very last slide, I've just popped our Stronger Practice Hub link there so that you can see the events that we've got coming up over the next few months. Thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you so much, Susie. And quite right, you can see just the difference in value that you're creating with all of that hard work and thoughts that went into designing and creating your nursery space. So thank you. That was really fantastic. Next, we will listen to Claire Larkin from Lime Tree Primary Academy. I'll pass over to you now, Claire. Thank you.
Thanks very much for inviting us. Our journey's been very similar, actually, to Susie Drake's, with some differences as well. But so I won't go over or repeat things that she said, hopefully. We're Lime Tree Primary School. We're also the lead school for our Northwest Early Years Stronger Practice Hub. We've set up a 2-year-old provision around 2018, requested for the area we were in, with the closure of the Sure Start centres and the need in our area. We're slightly different. We couldn't design our building. We already had a Sure Start building attached to our school that we inherited, a great little space and a lovely little outdoor space. We would prefer now a little bit bigger and a little bit closer to nursery, but they're just things we need to work with, really, what we've already got. So just a few things about us. So yeah, 2 to 11. Again, similar to what Susie said, our main area really was the speech and language that needs to come in. So we do a lot of welcome with our children. A high percentage of children with special needs, as well as EAL, coming through the school, and that's increased over the last 5 years in particularly. We've found that working with our parents, as well as Senas and Trafford, as well as Manchester, we border onto both, really helps to embed those systems, processes, start support a little bit earlier for our children rather than them coming to us in the nursery, in the 3-year-olds. But we do make sure that we have really useful spaces for our children that are accessible for all, that we're looking at all of the needs and making sure that we can target specific areas that are coming in each year. We're also blessed with our school field and a forest area, which I'm totally aware not every school has got that. We've got staff trained as forest school practitioners as well across the school. Next slide, please. So again, what was more important to us was, yes, what are the needs of our children coming in? We knew that from our children that came to us from the 3-year-olds to start with, but then assessing those needs as they're coming in and making sure that our areas are right for those children at that time as they're coming in. It's also really key to us that golden thread was running all the way through early years and beyond, up into the rest of Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2. So there's a very similar provision environment looks as you go from our 2-year-olds to our 3-year-olds and through to reception as well. We try and make sure that the 2-year-olds have always been totally embedded within our school. So from the minute we started with our 2-year-old provision, the staff are totally involved with our early years staff, who are then fed through to some of the staff meetings and the whole school staff training. Our CPD, our school priorities start with our 2-year-old provision, knowing that those are the absolute foundations we need to get right for the rest of the school. For the staff, for the children, but also for our parents, it gives us a really, really a huge platform, really, to be able to start embedding those expectations, attendance, punctuality, language, those key things we want to get in with our parents, use of dummies, sleep routines, or what they're eating, or letting us get in there, work with them while they're 2, as well as when they're 3, working on toilet training and things like that. So they're all totally on board with us, engaged in parent workshops, and understand those expectations for everybody. As part of the staff training and development, it's absolutely embedded in the whole school, but also separate. Sometimes early years need things totally different to the rest of the school, and that is key and really important that that happens. But the 2-year-old staff, training staff, are totally worked alongside the rest of early years. Sometimes the PPA, where we can, is with our nursery staff or whole EYFS leads together. There has been more work over the last few years for our subject leads, who are then based throughout Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, for them to develop their understanding. Our curriculum starts with our 2-year-olds and feeds all the way through to Year 6. It's important that the 2, 3 early years staff know where we're going with the curriculum, but it's equally important that our subject leads know exactly where we're starting and what it looks like in our 2-year-old provision. So lots and lots of work has been done there to make sure that happens. Lots of visits to 2-year-old provision as well as our nursery. There's a real embedding there and upskilling of all of our staff based on that. Next slide. I'm not sure what I've missed. So we're really blessed. We've got 2 job share managers that are in our setting who oversee the admin with the office team, the booking in, the paying, the attending, dealt with that team. We only run term time, but we do offer paid lunch places and full days as well. Then alongside that, we have the additional app that shares with parents about nappy changes, sleep, those different things you'd have in the nursery, 2 and 3-year-olds nursery, as well as then our ARC app that we use to share observations with the children and keep that communication very, very consistent with our parents. That then links into the rest of our school as well, with having the curriculum termly newsletters, the Google Classroom they can access, as well as following us on Instagram for every year group of the kind of things that the children are engaging in at the time. Our managers work really closely with the EYFS team as well as SLT across all areas. Yes, curriculum, assessment, behaviour, parent communication, attendance, SEND. As well as that, they also liaise very closely with Trafford and Manchester, like I say, we border, to talk about what are the needs coming through, what are the needs in terms of numbers that are in Trafford, that are in Manchester, that we need to try and accommodate for, as well as the needs that we're seeing coming through with SENAS. And then we can use our SENCO as well as our early years team and that experience of, so what provision do we need to provide? Is there any additional training our staff need to help towards that, to make sure that that's there and in place for them, as well as then the consistent routines that we've got all the way through school, zones of regulation, modelling language, and then the key person system as well that we've got in our nursery 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. I just put on there just a few things that our staff are really quite passionate about, trying to make sure they're always finding and enhancing the areas and changing the areas to make sure that they're attractive to the children's need and responding to those. Some of that can be really costly, other things aren't, and we wanted to put some ideas on there for that first as well, just to share those. I think that's it. I raced through that.
No, that was fantastic, Claire. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anything else, or?
No, don't think so.
Oh, that's great.
Questions that come through.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so just a reminder to everybody, if you do have questions for Claire or for Susie, please add them into the Q&A and then we will try to touch on them at the end of this webinar. But thank you so much, Claire. That was really helpful and really important as well, that recognition of how there is a golden thread between early years and the rest of the school, and how we should all aim to keep upholding that. Thank you. Okay, so in the next part of this webinar, we will present about the different offers of support available to you during and after your nursery build. So to begin with, we will start with the Stronger Practice Hubs. The Stronger Practice Hubs, they're funded by DFE, the Department for Education, and they consist of a lead early years setting and up to 4 partner settings who act as a point of contact for bespoke advice and signposting to wider support that's particular to what you need. Their role is to establish local networks of settings to share knowledge and evidence-informed practice. So if you join a Stronger Practice Hub, you can gain insights to effective practice that is being used and works within your local network. You will gain knowledge on evidence-informed approaches that will enhance your teaching, and you can benefit from bespoke advice and signposting to further support. If you're interested in reading more about the Stronger Practice Hubs, please use the link included on the slide. And here you can find your local hub, read highlights and see what's available, download some useful resources and access other information as well. And next, there is also the Early Years Child Development Training Programme. So this is a free online training focused on early years child development, and the training helps early years educators to build and strengthen their knowledge and understanding of child development. In particular, this training is aimed at nursery practitioners, childminders, nursery managers, reception-based teachers, and teaching assistants. The training content has been developed with early years experts and the Department for Education, and I will discuss the training modules on the next slide. So you can see that there's 8 modules available covering key areas of child development. Users can access the modules in any order at any time, although it's recommended that they're completed in consecutive order. You'll be able to see your progress as you are moving throughout the modules, and each module takes approximately 2 hours to complete. Key parts of the training include that they're free online interactive modules that cover many key areas of child development. There's a wide range of written content and training videos filmed in the early years settings. The training has designed to be flexible to suit users' busy schedules, so you can save your progress and then return to where you left off at any time with no time limit. There's reflections points and in your setting style prompts to focus users' learning in a practical way. There's a learning log to make notes as you learn and record your questions, and learning check questions to reflect on your practice and test your knowledge. There is also a certificate of achievement available to download and print after every module, and there's links to further reading and resources as well. So next we will take you through other support available, and this will be in-house from the DFE school-based nurseries team. So you can benefit from further support via our drop-in forums and the peer-to-peer support network. So firstly, we will be presenting 2 drop-in forums over the next couple of months. These will be a space for all school-based nurseries in receipt of the capital grant to gain guidance on best practice and implementation. This will be through discussions with DFE colleagues and other schools who are receiving the capital grant. And the aim of these forums is for schools to share and to listen to any common challenges and opportunities in their delivery. And we will also hear from more case studies at these sessions, so they'll be really useful to listen to. There will be a drop-in session in June, and there's another in July, and the links to the webinar registration pages are on the screen, and we will email them to you after this webinar as well. And secondly, we have a peer-to-peer support network. This is via a discussion thread on the customer help portal for all school-based nurseries capital grant projects to interact with each other. This discussion thread is available for all of you to post your advice and your tips that you've gained through your building experience, and to share any common obstacles you've faced in aim of gaining support from one another. Please note that DFE colleagues will not be posting on this thread or interacting with you there. This communication channel is purely for all of you schools only, and the link to this is on the screen as well. And next, we will share some links to other external support that's available. And also, please be reminded that we'll be sharing this slide deck with you after the webinar, so you can access the hyperlinks in your own time. So you'll see on the screen that there's different links available. Firstly, Childcare Works have produced a new series of 6 short recorded information sessions designed to support maintained schools and academy trusts to understand how the early years entitlements can be delivered. These information sessions cover topics such as delivering the early years entitlements in maintained schools and academy trusts, and advice on hosting a PVI to deliver on site. So that is the first hyperlink on the screen. If you're interested in gaining support for your staff recruitment or retention, we recommend you turn to the experience-based route for early years staff. This allows for suitable and experienced staff who do not hold full and relevant qualifications to be included in the staff-to-child ratios at level 3 following a period of supervised practice. There's also the Early Years Teacher Apprenticeship. This is a level 6 apprenticeship, and detail on the training is included on the linked page. Next, if you think you would benefit from procurement support, we recommend the Get Help Buying for Schools support on gov.uk. This is a free and impartial procurement service for people who buy goods and services for schools and multi-academy trusts. This support includes access to an experienced procurement team who work exclusively with the school sector, and they offer different levels of service and support depending on your school's or trust needs. Then there is also the foundation years, an easy access digital resource for everything early years. They deliver regular, relevant, topical information and sector news to support you in your role as an early years professional. Number 6 is the Help for Early Years Providers page on gov.uk, which is packed with resources, activities and support articles for childminders and practitioners working with children aged 0 to 5 years. And lastly, the Nuffield Early Language Intervention Programme provides schools with a way of identifying early language difficulties and is proven to improve children's language skills and behaviour in school. The link on the screen will take you to a list containing the NELI registered schools and their local authorities and regions. So next, we will be focusing on your questions that you submitted from the Q&A function. Please note we won't be answering questions related specifically to your application process or to your bid, but I will be calling out now to my colleagues who can come in and answer some of the most common themed questions. John or Craig, do you want to come in particularly on any common themes you saw around the grant?
Yeah, thanks, Helena. As Eleanor said, that we're providing live answers where we can. Where we can't, we'll provide written follow-up answers. I think in terms of broad themes, I've kind of picked out 2, but I've got another one I want to add on myself, if that's okay. One is around planning permission and whether the department can support or exert any influence. Unfortunately, we can't do that, but would encourage you to contact the LA Early Years team and see if they can provide that kind of support. In terms of procurement, there's a few questions around, do we need 3 quotes? Are there other approaches to procuring? I think the simplest answer to that is that we need to see that value for money has been derived. And ultimately, as a school, you need to meet the requirements of the Academy's Trust Handbook and your own procurement rules. As Eleanor's mentioned there's the Get Help Buying for Schools, which is a really good service. It's free, unbiased. Do speak to them. But if you've got a procurement route which is something other than securing 3 tenders for the work, I would encourage you contact us via the mailbox as quickly as you can. Set out in as much detail as possible what you're proposing, and we'll get straight back to you, and we'll come up with an answer there. And finally, this wasn't really a theme that came out in the questions, but it just occurred to me as I was reading other questions. In terms of scope change requests, I do know sometimes it can be difficult to judge whether a scope change is required or not. The simple answer is, if you're not sure, email us, email the mailbox, tell us what it is you're thinking about changing. We'll very quickly get back to you and tell you whether that's something we consider as part of the development of the project, not a material change to what you're providing, or whether we do need a scope change request. And that should help speed the whole process up. I think that was it. Thank you, Eleanor.
Thanks, John. Really helpful. my Ofsted colleagues, Blarina, Lucy, Caroline, there were a few Ofsted questions in the Q&A. Is there anything that you want to answer now, or you'll be happy to answer questions offline?
I can see Caroline.
Hi, yeah, happy to answer. There's a question that's come in about fast tracking. I think we've answered all the other questions, but we'll take another look at the end. Just to let you know, we don't have a fast track process because we have lots of applications coming in for lots of early years provision. So unfortunately, we can't offer a fast track. So hence we are saying, please get your applications in as soon as possible.
Thank you, Caroline. Really helpful.
No problem.
Okay, Susie, I will turn to you next. There's some questions about how you designed your space for your nursery and the language tool as well that you use. Do you mind sharing any more detail about that, please?
Yeah, so the language tool that we use across our curriculum, is that what the question's about?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So we use Launchpad for Literacy. It's currently under, I think, the second phase of research through the EEF. It's been something that we have used over a number of years, and that is almost like the backbone for our provision. So it ensures that every child at the end of early years has met the developmental skills that they need to be able to not only communicate effectively, but also have the fine motor skills, the gross motor skills, and so on, that they need to be able to move into Key Stage 1 with success. So that's the sort of this tool that we use to underpin our curriculum. In terms of our nursery design, it was a very long process with lots and lots of input from very passionate and enthusiastic early years experts. So we knew what we needed to have in terms of our areas of development. We went out to, I think, 4 different providers. Ended up going with one that was very local to ourselves and that fitted our philosophy. And we were really looking for flexibility and value for money. So we were looking for resources that could be used between different spaces. So there isn't anything that's specific, you know, this one only can be used in nursery or only can be used in reception. Very open-ended tools. I haven't actually put any photographs of my reception class in there because we just ran out of time for photographs more than anything else. But if you did want more detail on developing our environment, those 2 sessions that I've put on there, I've got an hour's long session where I'll go into a lot more detail about how we came to the decisions that we did, and specifically pieces of furniture that we used for certain purposes. And then the other option is to come and have the same session, an hour's session with the thought, the theory, the research that sits behind our decision-making process, but also to see the provision in action with the children. So through the links that I popped on those slides, that's probably the better option. And I won't be able to do justice to that question in this short period of time, I'm afraid.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you, Susie. And just one last question, because I'm conscious of time, for Claire, if you don't mind coming in. There was a question in the Q&A asking examples of suitable curriculums. Do you have any advice that you can share about your curriculums, please?
So again, similar to Susie, we are consistently and constantly on the EEF and looking at what's out there and where the research is. But we also have developed our own curriculum and scaled that down. So as such, from reception, nursery, what that looks like, what would that look like in year 2? In our 2-year-old provision, as well as making sure that every half term, really, we're looking at those needs of the children and how we make sure we're addressing that and using those as a hook for them.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you. I will move on to next steps now, as I'm conscious of time. We're running a little bit over, so thank you for those who are staying on just for another couple of minutes. We are now at the end of our webinar, and we will be closing it with next steps. And while we go through this, there will be a poll appearing on your screen shortly. My colleague will be adding this poll in, so we'd really appreciate if you can quickly answer this and we can capture some of your feedback in real time, please. The poll should appear any moment on your screen. But in the meantime, we're just showing you the key dates again. So as we showed you earlier, the most imminent milestone is to apply for Ofsted registration by the end of the month where relevant. And then shortly after that, you will soon receive project readiness surveys in early June as well. And as discussed, we will be holding an optional drop-in forum in June and July. If you have any key questions or topics of discussion related to your project build and you would like to hear more information about that at these drop-in sessions, then do come along and let us know via our feedback form. We will then collect all of your responses and aim to ensure that these webinar agendas will cover them. We're keen to hear the most important topics and questions that you would like to hear more about or gain advice on. And our feedback form is on the screen for you as well there. So just to reiterate, if you click the Microsoft form on the screen, once you receive the slide deck after the webinar, you can input any key topics that you want to discuss at our drop-in sessions, but also feedback about today's webinar as well. And if you have any specific individual or niche questions or issues that you would like to discuss with our team, please contact us via the email on the screen there as well. So thank you for attending the mobilisation webinar today. We hope that you can take forward today's guidance into your project delivery, and we look forward to seeing you again, hopefully at the next drop-in forum on the 19th of June. So thank you again for taking the time this afternoon to come along, and we really hope that we see you again and that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.